Hi everyone, welcome to Fluent For Real. Today is Wednesday and as usual at 9 p.m. Brazil time, we are here live on Instagram, MC and I. And for those of you who are here maybe for the first time, who still haven't seen one of our live lessons here on Wednesday, I am speaking from Belo Horizonte. My name is Renata. There are a lot of people, a lot of new people here at Fluent every week. We are very happy with that. And so I'm speaking from BH and MC is speaking from Canada where she works. So let's invite her in.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, how's it going?
Let me just change here a little bit because the light here is not so flattering.
Yes, it is. You look very pretty as usual.
Thank you. Everything going well from here. So, hi from Canada, everyone.
Yeah, I'm saying hi too. Some people are new around here, but some people have been with us for a while, and we really appreciate that, you guys. So today we are going to talk about how to convince someone that works with you, maybe a workmate, a client. Maybe you need to convince someone to do something, a client to buy something, purchase something, or not to make a mistake, maybe if you give them instructions or any kind of, advice. Maybe your boss, maybe your business partner, anyone that you work with, anyone in the professional environment that is in a situation that you see that person is making a mistake. Hi, Bruno. That person is making a mistake and you don't want her to do that. You want to change their minds. You want to talk them out of doing something or into doing something. And that is an interesting idiom. To convince someone is also to talk someone into doing or to talk someone out of doing something, to convince them not to do it. So that's what we're going to learn today in 3 easy steps. Convincing and persuading someone is something very complex. If it were easy, we would all get what we want all the time. It's not that easy. It requires a lot of argumentation. You need conjunctions. You need to link your ideas well. You need to have a lot of vocabulary too. But we can summarize that into a simple 3-step situation. And that's what I wanted to bring to you guys here today. OMC will be helping me out with that. Okay, so let's remember we are talking about the workplace. And here at Fluent For Real, for you guys who are new, who still don't know us so well, we are here to help you boost your career by teaching you the English that you need to use in your workplace, to use professionally. So we are going to talk and refer to situations that happen in the workplace, that happen while we are at work. So that's why we need to be tactful. Right, when we are working around, working with other people, we can't just say whatever we want, and we have to be careful with the language we use, not to offend anyone, not to sound like we are telling them to do something or forcing them to do something or suggesting something that wasn't actually asked for. So we really need to be tactful and not too emphatic sometimes. I don't know, depending on what you do, on your position, if you're talking to someone you are closer to, maybe you can be a little more emphatic, but I am assuming you can't. I am assuming you have to be tactful when you need to convince the person to do something you want, you think is best for them, at least. So let's start. I'm going to give you a context that is very true to reality, which is a conversation I have with myself pretty much every day during this quarantine time, which is, I'm not working out today. I'm not exercising today. I don't feel like it. I'm sick of the TV telling me what to do. I'm sick of the fake pep talks, on YouTube, like, you can do it. Come on, let's go. Yay. Get stronger. Feel you're getting stronger. And I'm like, oh my God, really? I can't wait, to have people around me again at the gym and so on. So that's pretty much the conversation I have with myself every single day. So let's take that as, an example of a situation, and then we will see we'll see other examples that are more related to the workplace. Remembering that, but just to make you guys laugh a little bit, I will use myself as an example. So the first thing you will do is show that you're listening. I'm going to flip the camera so you guys can see the easy steps that we're going to follow. So we're going to, okay, the 3 steps. The first step that we're going to take is show that you're listening. When someone is doing something you don't agree with or you think is not the best solution, by showing that you're listening, you open a door. You are not just telling them, no, that's wrong, don't do that, do this. You are opening up and saying, you know what, I understand what you're going through. I get that. The first option is, I get that. I understand that, which means I understand what your point of view, why you think that's a good decision to make, and so on. I get that. That is, let's say, neutral, not the most formal one, but it's very useful. Do you think that's something you use a lot, MC, there in Canada?
Yes, especially when you don't have a lot of time. I get that. It's like, okay, I acknowledge that, and let's keep moving.
Mm-hmm. The other one is, I see your point. Also very used in this kind of situation where someone is maybe convincing or argumenting against or for a point, and you are also acknowledging that I see your point. I understand your point of view. I understand what you're saying. But that doesn't mean I agree, but that doesn't mean I'm going to say that it's the best option for the moment. So I see your point is also a good expression to show that you're listening and acknowledging the person's point of view. And one that I like a lot is this third one here. I understand where, oh, okay, I should have placed them in the other line. I understand, let me do like, I understand where you're coming from. This is really nice because it shows the listener that you get their position. You're not in their shoes to understand exactly why and what's going on, but you can understand it. You're not them, you're not living that reality. Maybe you don't agree, but you understand where they're coming from. This is a very nice expression to use in this situation. It's a little bit more polite and it's a little bit, cooler to use. And last one, you do have a point there. You do have a point there. It's a little more emphatic than I see your point. You do have a point there. I like that one too because it emphasizes a little bit and it may even, let's say, be a little stronger. So the person is even like, wow, well, she really agrees with me. She really thinks that this is something cool, that, what I'm saying is something cool or reasonable. So these 4 examples, I get that, I see your point, I understand, or I see where you're coming from, and you do have a point there. These 4, I think that they're really good. You don't need more, at least to start off. These are nice. When you master these, you can learn others, but it's important to really master at least some to have in your pocket whenever you need to use them. Any questions, MC? Any comments that you would like to make?
No, those are great 4 options for us when we need to acknowledge that we're listening and especially be respectful, right? Because the more you use and approach that strategy, the more likely is for your listener to engage in your opinion, because they're gonna be recognized and their opinion is gonna be listened and they're gonna know that. So this is a good strategy to engage your audience and engage people who you want to convince.
And after you have their attention, the second step would be here to link them to the other side of the coin. What do I mean by that? Now you want to show them that there's a little bit of an issue there. It's nice. I see your point. I get where you're coming from. I see where you're coming from. But instead of using but, let's try to use something a little more elaborate. Like, for example, however. So you would go like, I see your point. I see where you're coming from. However, and then you start argumenting. So let's take my example, okay? Let's stop for a while. My example. So I'm talking to myself. I don't want to work out today. I know it's been 3 days, but I don't want to do it. I'm sick of the TV. So the smart side of me will say, I see where you're coming from. Working out in front of the TV really sucks. It's boring. However, if you don't do it, you will be more stressed out. You will be more anxious. It's not going to be very helpful. So you will show the person the other side, you know, of the coin, what would happen or what will happen if they do that, the bad consequences, something like that. So however is an option, even though that is true, or even though that may be true. I chose to use these two because when you don't agree 100% with what the person is saying, you will use that may be true. Even though that may be true, you know, you're like, well, maybe that's true. It's not, I don't know, but so it's something that lightens your speech a little bit. And when you say, even though that is true, it's because you really think it's true, you really agree. But there is a little bit of a problem, even though that's true. So in the same example, even though that's true, Renata, lazy Renata, even though that's true, I think you should consider, you know, working out because of the stress, because of anxiety, because it's good for your brain. It's important because you are at home, you're not moving around a lot. Even though that is true, however, and the classic here, on the other hand. On the other hand, will demonstrate the opposite side, whether it's good or bad. In this case, we're going to show, probably show the bad side, or actually no, it can be the good or the bad side, depending on how you are constructing your arguments. So on the other hand, however, and even though that's true, even though that may be true, even though that may be true. These are the three expressions that I used to link to the issue that we will need to show the listener that there is an issue involved. Which one do you prefer? Which one would you choose as your favorite?
Well, I say a lot on the other hand. On one, but you know what? I usually forget on one hand too.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it's an option. And even though that's true, or even though you may have a point, it's also pretty common.
Yeah, it's interesting that because the expressions can be used, you know, together. I see your point. Even though I see your point, even though I get your point, it doesn't mean that they can't be used together. As you control, as you master that kind of structure and construction more, you will see that you have a lot of possibilities, and you don't have to say the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Every time.
And however, there's 2 points there. Even though it's more common to use however in certain situations, especially if you don't have a quite large vocabulary, right away, if I'm the listener, I'm going to assume that you know what you're talking about. So if you're not 100% sure, maybe however is not the best option to go with. That's why it's so important to understand the options and vary your vocabulary as you're trying to convince someone, because using the right connectors, it can be very powerful for your point.
Yeah. I always say that when you frame what you are about to say well, it already gives a first impression, and you place the person's brain where you want it to be. You already introduced to that person like what area of, you know, language ideas or language groups your sentence or your speech or whatever you have to say, your statement will be. So I want to say, even though that may be true, the person understand that what's coming after that is already something that she can kind of understand, like filter. So the conversation flows more naturally like that, and flows in a easier, you know, flow, easier rhythm.
Yep. And using properly this as well, you're going to avoid creating that defense mode that usually activates as soon as you're not agreeing with someone. So it's a good way to overcome that challenge as well.
And the third step that we have is the call to action. Here, you are going to tell the person what you think they should be doing, what you think is the best option, what you think the decision should actually be. Talking them into doing something or talking them out of doing something, of course. So I listed some expressions that you need to be careful with. These are not the ones that I want you to focus on, because they are the ones that, especially these two here, we need to and we have to, these are the ones that you probably use all the time, or more naturally, they're more in your comfort zone, because that's kind of how we say it in Portuguese, without being very careful with what we say. So you need to, we need to, you have to, or we have to is not the best, because first of all, they're strong verbs. You need to do it, you have to do it. They are very, very emphatic. You have to be really careful to choose the right moment, if there is a right moment, depending on where you work, how you work, the formality of your professional environment, and the people around you. So be extra careful, guys. Don't use very strong verbs like need and have, or must. Also here, must is the strongest one. When actually you want to be a little careful, like MC said, you don't want to bring up that wall of I'm not even listening to you anymore because you're just telling me what to do. You don't want to do that. That's defense wall. So you have need, have, must as a modal verb that describes obligation, or the imperative form. Don't do it or do it. Do this, do that, work out in front of the TV. Just do it. That's not the best way to convince someone in the workplace. I can do that to myself. I kind of need to tell myself that, like, just do it, just go, stop overthinking it. But in the workplace, no. So these expressions are in orange because they're dangerous, very dangerous. And now we're moving on to the ones that are actually a good idea to be used, with also some comments. Well, the call to action in the shape of statements. What are statements? They are sentences that are not questions. They are an affirmative sentence or a negative sentence. Like, if I were you, I would do this, or you should, or you ought to do this. Also a modal verb that we can use. You should or you ought to. These are nice. They are polite. If I were you, I would. That means I am putting myself in your shoes. You should or you ought to. They are great. They can be used, and they are actually very common, especially should is a very common verb we use a lot. And if I were you, I would brings that element of abstraction that is like, well, I'm not you. If I were you, I would. You're very out of reality, so it's a very delicate way of putting your suggestion out there in the world. But they are statements. If you want to be extra careful, you ask a question. A question is always more mild than a statement. I'm not saying these ones are bad, they're good. But we have even more options to go with. We have, why don't you try doing this? Why don't you try turning on some very loud music, Renata, to get you, hyped up for the workout? Have you considered changing the videos that you watch to, work out with more pleasure? Don't you think you could do this? Don't you think you could maybe FaceTime a friend and do it together so you get excited about it? How about changing the time of your workout to the evening? So all of these questions are very nice ways of giving a suggestion and telling the person and convincing the person to do whatever you want them to do. Why don't you try plus ing, attention, because guys, try to do and try doing are different ideas. You're talking about two completely different things. When I use the verb ing, I am telling the person to experiment something. Try as in, like, for the first time, something new, something different. So why don't you try doing yoga classes? Or you can also use a noun too. Why don't you try yoga classes, for example? Have you considered plus verb ing as well? Have you considered working out at night? Don't you think you could plus do? Don't you think you could work out? And how about plus verb ing? These are the four questions that I picked for this moment. Why don't you try? Have you considered? Don't you think you could? And how about? Now, what are we going to do, MC? Practice. Because you guys know
gotta love it.
Exactly. I just don't believe in passive learning. I believe that we have to practice and we have to get our brain to to do it, to work it,
And
work on it.
before we jump to it, are you
Mm.
listening to my everything in my house here? Just because working from home is a struggle, not only here, right? I guess it's everywhere, and sharing the same space can be challenging.
To be honest, I am so focused on what I'm saying that I'm not listening. Maybe everyone else is, but
Okay,
that's okay.
perfect.
I shot a video the other day and I was editing the video and I was like listening to the kids, the neighbors' kids are going "Wah, nah, nah, nah," in the video. I'm like, okay, quarantine times, but actually
Quarantine
for
times,
me,
I guess by now everybody's used to that. But
yeah.
anyway, I was
So
like, well, maybe it's gonna get in the video later on if we post it, but that's okay.
yeah.
Just checking.
Okay, so the situation is,
So you're gonna give me a situation, and I'm supposed to put in practice what we learned.
yes, 3 steps. You're going to first show the person you're listening,
Yes.
link to the problem, and then call to action.
Mm-hmm.
Convince your stingy boss that he needs to invest some of the budget in new laptops for people to work from home. He says he believes that it's not the right time to do it.
Great. So before starting, that's my question. I was about to ask, like, can you share with everyone what stingy means?
Stingy means someone who hates spending money. Who is like we say in Brazil, right? Like that. Uh-huh. So that's your boss. You have to talk to him.
Okay, so I'm pretty much that person too, so no worries. Okay, so hey boss, I recognize that you have a great point there. It may not be the best time for us to spend money. We need to make sure we are going to be financially well in the long term and at least in the midterm because we know our income is compromised right now. Um, but you know what? Oh, maybe, but you know what is not the best one. Okay, so pause.
Uh-huh. Pause.
Did I did I do good
Yes.
there?
First step there.
Okay. On the flip side, we haven't changed people or updated people's computers or laptops for so long. I think it's been 5 years or so, and they rely on their laptops so much to get the work done. It would be important for it to be updated, for us to update and provide better and brand new laptops to everyone. Did I do the
Okay, so
second part
yeah,
okay?
what I found interesting is that you decided instead of asking your boss, so how about this? You said, I think it would be important to do this and this and that. That was a
Oh,
very
okay.
subtle way, but actually really cool. A subtle way of asking him to do something because he's your boss. Maybe you were a little more scared of asking, hey boss, don't you think you could? Maybe we could, instead of asking him to do it, you just said, I think it's important. That's also interesting, how it came naturally like that.
Okay. I could have
All right.
said, I believe, or I guess we should pursue that
Mm-hmm.
option regardless of not being the perfect timing.
Yeah, that's also really cool. Second option here, second situation. You are a lawyer and your client is buying a house from his best friend. He doesn't want to follow all the procedures, like contracts and write a full, beautiful, rich contract because he trusts his best friend.
Okay.
Talk to your client.
Oh, okay. So I guess Joey is, so go back in the situation again because now Joey
Joey
has,
is buying a house from
yeah.
Chandler and he doesn't
Okay.
want to follow all the procedures because he trusts his best friend.
Perfect. So Joey's buying a house from Chandler, and in order for everyone to follow what I'm doing as well, can we go to like as soon as I touch each rule, you move through them?
Okay, good idea. So we're going to start from the first step. My pen is a little bit, okay. First step.
All right, so let's go. Hey Joey, I get that Chandler is a best friend, and to be honest, you've done business with Chandler before. I see your point, and I understand that you trust him a lot, and the chances of him disappointing you are pretty low. First
Step number
part.
two. Step number two now. Link them to the other side of the coin, like that.
Even though that's true, buying a house can be very sensitive, and I strongly encourage you to. But I'm jumping already to the third point, right?
No, but that's okay if you don't have that much to say in the
Yes,
second step. That's it. Okay. Now the
yes.
third
Even
step.
though that may be true, don't you like to consider a little bit reviewing the chances of that going sour? And maybe you're gonna revisit your thinking and realizing or getting a little bit more sense into, does that make sense to run that risk or not? So why don't you read a little better why don't we go through again the risks that you would be running if you decide not to sign a proper contract?
Okay. Well, if I were your client, you would definitely convince me.
Oh.
Next one.
Thew. Few.
Your business partner wants to expand the business right now, even though the market is tough. You don't think that is the best idea. Just to introduce to your business partner. He's a pretty confident guy who thinks everything always happens, you know, good,
Okay.
well for him. Everything always.
So I'm guessing I'm Captain American then. American then.
Maybe you're. What's the name of his wife? Pepper something. Maybe you're her. So let's go back
Okay.
to the steps. Step number one: show you're listening.
Yeah, so what's the situation again? Again, I get lost as soon as
He
you tell me
he, he
who
wants
my
to
character
expand.
is.
He wants to expand
Expand the business.
business, and you don't think that's a good idea right now.
Okay. Okay, partner, I see your point, and I agree. We've been talking about expanding our business for so long now. And our plan for 2020 would be finishing the first quarter with that already. And even though I'm totally supporting that, and even though I agreed with you initially in having that first quarter goal, yes, I accomplished that already. So even
Mm-hmm.
though I agree with you, even though we did our plan together last year, and that was the
Mm-hmm.
plan for 2020 first quarter.
Mm-hmm. Third step: call to action.
Even though that's true, it might be tough to do that now. COVID hit, and this is going to be a big risk for our business. We need to make sure right now we just sustain it properly. So why don't we talk a little bit more about that, but maybe mapping the risks that we'll be running, and maybe mapping the pros, because then we can see if it's going to even out or see if it's going to be a bad decision for this moment. And you know what? Maybe it's just a matter of postponing that until COVID, and until we're out of the woods, and until this COVID situation gets better. So maybe just one more quarter. It's not going to hurt our 2020 plans.
I like that smile. Like, it's not gonna hurt our
Pretty
plan.
please.
Well, really cool, MC. Those were the situations that I had. You guys, would you like me to post more situations like that so you can practice? You guys can practice the 1, 2, 3 step. Let me know in the comments if you do. So that was our lesson of the day. We wanted you guys to learn 3 easy steps into the world of convincing or persuading in order to argument and tell someone what you really think they should do or should not do. We will announce that next week we have a bit of a big surprise, and we're going to be sharing some really cool content that we think is going to be very helpful to you guys, something really, really special. So Sarin said she does want the situations. So this content next week, you guys, I think you guys are going to be happy. Aren't they going to be happy, MC?
I'm pretty damn sure.
That's it. So we're working really hard to get that content up next week, and it's going to be awesome. Thank you guys so much for being with us here tonight. We really hope everyone is safe, everyone is fine, everyone is, happy at home. We will not be leaving this live lesson on Instagram stories like the whole day, 24 hours. We will be posting the video tomorrow on IGTV and YouTube if you prefer, and in Facebook if you prefer to watch it there. All right, just so you don't feel like maybe you're orphans because the live lesson is not saved here to our Instagram stories. Okay, so you guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you guys for joining us. We have very dear guests here tonight, new guests, and people who have been following us and have been coming every Wednesday. So we are here every Wednesday, 9 p.m. Brazil time, and MC is here every Wednesday.
8 p.m. Eastern time.
8 p.m. Eastern time because she's speaking from California, from Canada.
Not so much.
So thank you guys. Bye, MC. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.